Hello, my name is Jennifer Marsman, and you guys are in the Cognitive Services session. So there's kind of a wide range of machine learning products and services that Microsoft offers, and the cognitive services are one that I really, really love because they are just dead simple. They're really, really easy to use. And if you've ever heard Satya talk about democratizing AI, like this is the perfect example of it. What the cognitive services let you do is take pre-built models that have been created with the decades and decades of research that the Microsoft research team has done, and you can leverage them in your own applications. So when you think of things that 10 years ago we used to think of as artificial intelligence, things like facial recognition and speech recognition and sentiment analysis, these big problems, emotion detection. These are essentially solved machine learning problems at this time. So you can take this data, these models have been trained over lots and lots of data, and then you can just be able to leverage these. So it gives you some very, very kind of common tasks that a lot of people use, facial recognition, sentiment analysis, et cetera, and then you can just leverage these existing models from any platform and such. So really, really cool stuff. So I'm going to give you an overview. The cognitive services actually contain over 20 different sets of APIs, and then within those 20 different sets of APIs, there's a whole bunch of different methods. So there's just a ton of stuff in here. So I'm going to try to give you the breadth. Here's all the stuff that's in there, and dive into the ones that I think are particularly cool and relevant and useful. And then if you have any questions along the way, just let me know. All right. And my contact info is up there. If you have any questions after that you don't get a chance to ask, feel free to reach out to me on my blog or Twitter or however you're most comfortable. All right. So diving into it, that really is the Microsoft Cognitive Services. I mentioned that there's these over 20 different APIs that are available. Those 20 different APIs can be split into 5 categories of things. And so the first is vision, so taking images and then being able to do interesting stuff with it. So extract the faces from the images, or do image recognition. So this is a picture of a banana and a cat, etc. So those kind of things. So there's a lot of stuff around vision. We'll deep dive into that. There's a bunch of stuff around speech, speech to text, text to speech, speaker recognition, etc. There's some language stuff where you can do some cool language parsing, things like that. And some really neat stuff in there. There's also knowledge APIs. I think the recommendations API is under there, which is really, really powerful. And then search as well, where you can programmatically leverage the power of Bing to do some cool stuff with search. So I'll give you some examples and demos of all of these things. But first, let me take a step back and say, where's the why? And again, there's so much machine learning stuff that Microsoft is doing. You guys may have seen, has anyone been to any of the Azure machine learning talks? There have been a few of them. I think there's another one going on simultaneously right now. Yeah, there's a couple of those. So Azure machine learning is really great when you want to build your own model to predict something. So maybe you want to predict your own sales numbers, or you want to predict what inventory in my store should look like at a given time of year, or something like that. And so you can use Azure machine learning to bring in your own data and train your own models and such. There's also something called the CNTK, which is now called the Cognitive Toolkit, which is a deep learning open source toolkit that we released. It's very similar to Google's TensorFlow, if you're familiar with that. Only it's faster. It's really performant. Amazing. You can check out the GitHub page for more details on that. And then there's kind of all of the cool machine learning stuff inside of SQL Server 2016 that's out. And then there's also R Server. So there's like all these options that are there. And so kind of how would you choose which one, or why cognitive services? When would you want to use that? Here's kind of the 3 key reasons. So number one, it's easy. It is just dead simple. I'll show you some code in a second. And it's really, really easy to code for this. So it's just REST-based APIs. So I can basically send an image up and get back all of this information about a face, and et cetera. So I'll show you all of that. The second thing is it's really, really flexible. As I mentioned, it's just REST calls, right? So we have client-side SDKs, which are essentially just wrappers for those REST calls that do like the parsing and stuff for you. So for a bunch of different languages, including Windows, of course, and C#, iOS, Android, Node. We have some Jupyter notebooks with Python all set up. So we have a couple different things that are out there. But even if none of those are your language of choice, it's still just every language has a REST library, right? So just you can make calls and it's fine. So you can really use it from whatever language, whatever platform you want. And then finally, it's really well tested and well supported, which is nice. So when you think about just some of the stuff, like at Microsoft, we've been doing kind of machine learning and artificial intelligence for a long time. I'm giving away my age here a little bit, but I started at Microsoft, I think 14 years ago. And when I was hired to do machine learning work. And so we've been doing it for a very, very long time. And the folks in machine research, when I was on the product teams as a developer I worked very closely with them. And there's some very, very cool machine learning work that's been done there. And then kind of the power of Bing as well. So for machine learning, data is really important. All right, so when you have a search engine, you essentially have a copy of the internet stored on your servers. So there's a lot of data and a lot of cool stuff that you can do with that as well. So really, really neat possibilities there. And then finally, we have a lot of great documentation, there's sample code out there, and then there's community support. If you hit Stack Overflow with the tag cognitive-services, as well as the MSDN forums, we're actively monitoring those and making sure we're trying to help people out. All right. So let's talk about some scenarios. When might I want to use this? So I've been mentioning all this crazy stuff, facial emotion recognition and all these other things. Okay, fine. Like, how would a business use this? Or what are some real scenarios where people are really using this? So here's a couple of ideas. First of all, the emotion detection. I'll show you that in a little bit. But emotion detection can be really useful if you're a retail store and you want to see how people are reacting to your products, or for usability testing. This is awesome for usability testing. Because if you have a camera, so first of all, when somebody signs up to do usability testing, they know that you're monitoring them. Like, that's part of the opt-in deal. And so you go in and you're looking at stuff, and if you're confused, or you're like, ew, or you're a little disgusted, or you're happy, or you're surprised and delighted by what you see, like, all of these emotions can register. And so it's really nice to have that video and actually be able to map that back to, okay, when they were looking at this, they were happy. When they were looking at this, they were confused. Like, those kind of things actually can be very, very helpful in product design. Facial identification. So one of the other talks I'm doing right now is around using drones with cameras on them to fly around and do facial recognition. And so I understand that's kind of a crazy thing to think about. But one possible scenario for that, besides like security and surveillance and some other things, is finding missing children at a amusement park. And I know that sounds kind of scary, like the idea of drones flying around an amusement park, like checking people out. But honestly, Disney, right? They would find a way to make it magical. They probably have like drones that look like Tinkerbell and her friends, because it's not just Tinkerbell anymore. They found that Tinkerbell worked with little girls, so now there's like a whole bunch of Tinkerbell's friends that all have their own little personalities and stuff. So I bet they would make like Tinkerbell fairies just flying around, and everyone would be like, oh, it's Tinkerbell, that's awesome, and then they'd be even more happy because it's Disney and they can just do that. It's magical. So anyway, another possible thing is facial identification to find missing children or some such scenario. Next is sentiment analysis. So this can be really useful even in things like just seeing how people feel about your business. If you hypothetically did a Twitter search for the tag Microsoft and pulled back all of that data and did some sentiment analysis on it, it's really interesting to see what are all the things that people are saying about Microsoft. What are the key topics that they're talking about? What are the key positive things? What are the key negative things? That's a really interesting thing. So you can do that for your own business, is pull Twitter or other social media data and just see, what is this free feedback that is coming in, and then how can we help and make our customers even happier? So a lot of cool things there. Okay, this is actually a really funny scenario that one of my colleagues, so we were all together at a hackathon, and one of my colleagues, Daniel Egan, and a team of people actually created, using the cognitive services, this app. It's out on GitHub right now, so you can go download it if you want. But it's facial detection to calculate the male to female ratio at a nightclub. Because one of the things, if one has been to a nightclub, which of course I would know nothing about because I spent my university years at the library like a good girl, but if one were to do the nightclub scene, apparently the male to female ratio is something that is kind of heavily looked at, and so sometimes they have these pretty girls and bring them in ahead of the crowd to get more girls in and less, just to even out the ratio, those sort of things. And so having facial recognition that can identify gender and keep track of the ratio and making sure it's roughly even could be a really useful thing. It could also be really useful if you couple that with facial identification, so being able to recognize specific faces, and maybe if it's more like a casino type scenario, and you have like your high rollers, like the big spenders at the casino, and you want to give them, the roll out the red carpet treatment for our very high spending guests, that sort of thing. You could do that kind of thing, or conversely, if you flip that on its head, if there's people that have been thrown out of the nightclub before or thrown out of the casino, you could recognize them like as they come in and be like, nope, sorry, you were thrown out of here last week, and that sort of thing. So there's some neat things you could do there as well. The next one is language understanding. And so I'll show you this in person. I won't do it justice describing it because it is so awesome. But our Lewis service is truly amazing. So I'll give you a sense for that. And then we'll look at object recognition as well in a bit, and OCR and such. So 2 quick case studies for real. So those were a bunch of scenarios. Some of those were not implemented. Some of those have been implemented. Some of them haven't yet. But here's 2 examples of real customers that are using these cognitive services today. The first is an Amish furniture store. So they create really, really good furniture. We actually have some Amish furniture at my family's cottage, and it's really beautiful. And they're using our recommendations API, which is a really powerful thing where you just basically upload your product catalog and your transaction logs, and it can give you a whole bunch of information about recommendations for specific customers and such. And so they're using that, and they're saying that the recommendations is actually accounting for like 15% of their total sales now. So that's a lot of money, a big extra leap. So not very hard to set up, and pretty substantial gains. The second one is Uber. There's actually a fun YouTube video on this I wasn't going to show, but we can if there's time at the end. But Uber, the scenario there is that and this has only been rolled out in the US so far. I think they're doing a pilot in the US, and then they're going to expand it to worldwide. You guys have Uber here, right? Uber in Europe? Okay. Is it less popular here? What do you guys use if you're trying to get cars? Do you mainly use Uber? Or are there other ones that are popular? Uber's everywhere, and everybody's loving it. Do you guys have Lyft? Is Lyft competing with it here or not much? Okay. There's Lyft and Uber in the U.S., but I think Uber's still a little bit ahead right now. Okay, so anyway, the scenario is an Uber driver. So an Uber driver has to go through a background verification, right? They do background checks on them, make sure they're not crazy serial killers, et cetera, et cetera. And so they have this background check done on them, and then you have this Uber driver account. However, what could happen is, let's say I go through the driver account thing, and I want to go take a nap or something, and so I give it to my sister, and I want my sister to drive for me. And so that's a real thing that can happen, where someone's gone through the background check, but then they might not always use it. They may hand their phone off to someone else, and then there's someone else driving for them, which is not safe because that person hasn't necessarily gone through the background check. So what Uber is doing to help mitigate this is facial verification using our cognitive services. So when they register as an Uber driver, there's a photo of them that is used. And so when you log in to start one of your shifts, occasionally it will pop up and ask you to take a selfie. And so you have to go in and take a picture of yourself, and then what it does is take that image, sends it up, and just verifies that you are the same person who is on file as the person who's supposed to be driving. And it will actually give you some stuff, like if you weren't originally wearing like glasses in the photo, and they're like big sunglasses that kind of obscure your eyes and such, it'll actually ask you, it'll recognize that there's glasses and say, please remove your glasses, especially if they're obscuring your eyes, and then you retake the picture and that sort of thing. So really, really interesting scenario to actually make a better experience to protect Uber passengers and give them a more safe, secure experience, as well as protect the Uber drivers to make sure nobody's trying to fake their identity also. Okay, so I keep saying this is crazy easy. How crazy easy is it, Jennifer? So let me show you a little bit of code. This particular piece of code is calling the computer vision API. So I'm trying to recognize what a certain image is. And so what I do here is I'm taking this visual feature, and I'm in this collection I have two things. I want the tags and the description. So I'm asking for two things. There's actually a ton of data you can get back. And so instead of asking for all of that data, I'm just going to limit it to the tags and the description. And then I just create a new file stream, which will turn, it's actually this image right here. So I will turn this image, this JPEG, into the stream of zeros and ones that make up that image, and send that up right here by calling this vision client, analyze the image asynchronously. It sends up that stream of zeros and ones, that is the picture, as well as the features that we want, which are the tags and the description. And what that turns into is just a simple post. And we're calling, you can see it specifically is asking for the visual features, description, comma, tags. And then the subscription key can actually be here, or it can be in your header as well. And so then what I get back is actually some nice JSON. And you can see here are the tags and the description that I asked for. For the tags, those are typically a simple one-word description of the image. So in this case, you see that we got outdoor with a very high confidence level. And you can see that is indeed very outdoorsy. And then we also got bird back with a very high confidence level, 95%, that is a bird and it is outdoors. Okay, pretty good so far. And then there's also a description, so that gives you just the tags without the confidence level, as well as captions. And in this case, the caption that we have here is a partridge in a pear tree, which is in fact what that image is. So lovely, lovely, lovely. So fairly easy code. It's JSON back. It's pretty easy to manipulate. So let's kind of dive into those 5 categories in a little bit more depth. I'll start with vision. So in the vision set of APIs, there may actually be a few more now because they've updated the deck since then, but a couple key categories. The computer vision is the one that we just saw. Give me an image, and I will tell you what's in the image. There's also a face API that can get a whole bunch of information about your face. I'll show you some examples of that. We have an emotion API, which can distinguish between 8 different emotions, and it has been trained across genders, across ages, across ethnicities. So a lot of different data, a lot of different people to give you the emotions that are displayed fairly similarly across cultural lines. And then finally, a video API to do a lot of this stuff from within video as well. All right, so let me actually show you. Oh, here's some information about some of the fun data that actually comes back from some of these, just to give a sense of what all can we get access to. So the computer vision API, you already saw a little bit of that code. So you already saw description and tags. Another thing you can get back is it's actually an enumeration. I think one would think that the clip art would be a Boolean, but I think it's actually an enumeration of like not clip art, good clip art versus like bad, like just how cartoony it is. So there's actually like a level. So I think it's actually an enumeration. Whether it's a line drawing, so think about something like a coloring book type page where it's a line drawing and you could color it in type thing. That's a Boolean, I think. Black and white is also a Boolean, whether it's black and white versus color image. And then there's an is adult content and is racy, along with corresponding scores for both of those. So one might wonder what the difference between those two is. I sure did when I first saw that. The difference is adult content is what you think it is. That's the really naughty stuff. Is racy is something that could be like a woman in a bathing suit. So something that may not be appropriate in certain cultures or in front of kids or whatever, but not necessarily the really bad stuff. Okay, so that's the thing. And a lot of people, there's actually, I think they pulled it out into a whole separate API because there's a bunch of people actually using us right now just for content moderation. So if there's anything like at this conference, for example, there's the hashtag NDC, and if you go into the main expo hall, anybody who tweets with the hashtag NDC London gets their tweets displayed up there. But, people can catch on to this and start writing, silly things or posting silly images, and then crazy stuff can come up, and then that might make, NDC London look bad. So one way to protect against that is by sending things to this content moderator. Yeah, I see you looking back there. No, that was not a suggestion. That was you can send the data up to the cognitive services first through the content moderation filter, and it will let you know, okay, this is fine, and then you can post with a little more confidence. We also have categories here, and then you can also use the scores in conjunction to that to kind of see, here's how much I'm okay with. Like maybe I'm okay with up to 0.5% raciness, but over than that, I don't want to do or whatever. So you can figure it out based on your audience and what you're trying to do. All right, there's categories as well. So that's a whole different thing of categories of objects. So we can tell you what categories out of 86 different categories that we can recognize things very well, which of those it fits into. Faces, it'll extract the faces. It'll actually extract the dominant colors and an accent color as well. And then the emotion API, what that gives you back is the 8 different emotions that we recognize, along with a confidence score between 0 and 1 for each of them. So if I'm making an expression that is part angry and part contemptuous, for example, you might get like 0.4 on anger, 0.4 on contemptuous, and then maybe the remaining 0.2 is dispersed among like disgust and neutral and a few other things. All right, does that make sense? So it's kind of you can get an overall picture of emotion. It's not just one emotion back. Okay, cool. All right, so that's the emotion API, and I'll show you an example of that. Oh, and the emotions, the 8 emotions that it does recognize are anger, contempt, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, surprise, and neutral. All right, and then there's the facial API. What that gives you back is the bounding box of my face, so the initial like left, right, where to start, and then the width and height to give you that bounding box of where the actual face is in an image. It gives you 27 different facial landmarks, the edge of the lips, the root of the nose, the kind of tips of each nostril, all these typical facial landmarks that are used in facial detection. It gives you an estimated age. So around the estimated age, please do not, I would like to personally apologize on behalf of Microsoft if we get your age wrong. I'm sorry. Do keep in mind that I, as a human being, get people's ages wrong probably most of the time. It's really hard to estimate age, right? And when you think about what we're doing is, we're doing it the same way humans do it, where we have a whole bunch of historical data of, here's a bunch of faces, here's what age they are, and then you use pattern recognition as, okay, this is approximately what a 33-year-old looks like, and then you kind of guesstimate based on that. But it also depends on the angle of your head. It depends for me, if I'm smiling, my wrinkles come out, and it makes me look older, so like my age will go up when I start smiling, and then I'm like, darn it, stop smiling. Those kind of things. So, but it's really interesting stuff. Estimated gender, that one is fairly accurate. It's pretty good. It gets it wrong once in a while, but it's pretty good. Head pose, so it'll kind of look at the angle of your head. Smile, which is a value between 0 and 1 for kind of the brightness of the smile. A really smiley is going to be 1, and then a teeny smile would be a very low number. Facial hair. Facial hair is actually a collection where there's a bunch of Booleans inside of it. There's a separate thing for mustache and beard and stuff like that, so very cool there. And then glasses is actually an enumeration between 4 different values. You can either have no glasses, you can have reading glasses, which are regular glasses, you can have sunglasses, or you can have swim goggles. There were swim goggles in our training set. So if you have a use case where you need to know if someone is wearing swim goggles, we got you covered. So that's all of the data that you get back. I'm going to jump over this really quick, but this is basically like an FAQ I put together of, here's a bunch of interesting things about these that people seem to always ask these questions. So first of all, there's samples and SDKs out there, a ton of them, and it depends on which cognitive service you're using for what SDKs they actually are. Like, for example, for one of the cognitive services, there's an iOS API that was written in Objective-C, and then another cognitive service has an API written in Swift. So it's just like there's a bunch of different stuff, and it's a little different for each of them, but there's a bunch of stuff, and more is being added all the time. So just go and look at the samples and SDK section to see if one exists already, if you just want those easy wrappers for the REST calls so you don't have to do your own parsing. There are some constraints. So the computer vision API, for example, describes images in English only right now. So if you wanted to do that, you would have to do a second call to like a translator API to get it in another language. So we're working on expanding support for more and more languages. That's one of the big pieces of feedback we're hearing from all over the globe. The face API, if you give it, it can handle a max of 64 faces in one image. So it usually does a great job, but if, for example, you give a picture of your wedding day, and it's like a picture of you and everyone you know in one huge image, then it may not get all the faces. And then I gave you some file formats. Here's the constraints around what file formats, image sizes, all of that good stuff. And then there's also, here's a fun thing too. There's a facial recognition one that, like, how similar are these two faces? And there's actually two modes. One is match person, and that means that, tell me if these two people are the same. And then there's another one, if you turn that, flip the Boolean to match face, that tells you just how similar are these two faces. So if, for example, I wanted to build a celebrity recognition thing, like which celebrity do I look the most like, which has already been built, then you can do that, and then it shows you, which celebrity do I have the closest, facial structure to, and it will do that as well. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of other good stuff. So a lot of good stuff. All this stuff is documented in the documentation, but those are just a few of the things that I get asked all over the place. So wanted to call those out. Okay, so let's see some good stuff. I'm going to start by just going to the Cognitive Services website. So it's www.microsoft.com/cognitive. So when you get there, you will land on a page that looks like this. And then you can click on APIs and see all of our lovely 20-plus APIs that are available. So let me start by just going to the face one. And it gives you, this is really great if you just want to kick the tires and see how well this really performs before you commit. You can come to the website, and it's so nice because they let you do all of it. So in this case, the first thing is facial detection. So just show me where the faces are in this image. And so in this case, here's we have a couple of sample images in here. Or if you don't want to use our samples, you can actually go here and upload one of your own pictures. And I'm not sure what I have in my pictures directory right now, so I'm not going to do that. But I'll just use the sample. But it's very, I've done it, and it works. It's good. Okay, so here's kind of the data that you can see right here. First, everything gets assigned a face ID. We keep that for a short amount of time, and then we throw it away. And that's for recognition of things like when you're saying, does this face resemble this face? You need an ID associated with the faces. So we generate an ID and hold on to that for a bit. But if you don't use it at all, then it'll just get recycled after a certain amount of time. Here's the bounding box. So that gives you that face rectangle. So that's what allows us to draw this little face around this woman's face. Here are the 27 facial landmarks. Where's the left side of the pupil? Where's the right side of the pupil, et cetera, the nose tip, et cetera. So all 27 of those are available for XY coordinates. And then at the bottom, we have some more fun data, which is an estimated age, about 23 and a half for her. Her gender, female. We have the head pose information. She has a very, very bright smile, almost a value of 1. She has no mustache, no beards, and no sideburns. Good. And then she is wearing reading glasses. So you see the glasses is returning reading glasses. All right? So really, really cool stuff. And so just don't take my word for it. Go play on this website because it's so much fun, and upload your own stuff and see how well it works. We do a whole bunch of other stuff with the facial API as well. You can check and see how likely it is that two faces are the same person. So this is the facial verification. The drone project that I was doing was using this code where I had I had trained it on me to recognize me. And so then as it flew and it sent images and stuff, it would do the facial detection to find my face or to find faces in there, and then check to see if any of the faces were me. And so that was using this facial verification. And again, you can try it out yourself by uploading 2 different pictures of you and then submitting it and see what happens. But it's pretty good. We also have facial identification. So tag people together, so you can do tagging. You can do similar face searching where it'll group together like faces in this face grouping as well. And then you can also do this with video. So there's some cool stuff with video too. So a lot of cool stuff. I definitely recommend just playing around on this website because that's a good thing to get you started. I also want to show one more demo. So I wish I could take credit for this, but I can't. This was written by a teammate of mine, Rachel Weil, and I love her. She's fabulous. And so she actually used cognitive services to create this Deal With It bot. And so what it does is it creates a little animated GIF of sunglasses falling on your face. Super cool. And so you can upload your own, or you can point it to any URL, and it will work with any URL. So I think I actually have an example here, which I'm going to grab. But you can just do a, here is one example. So this is a thing, a picture of the cast of Orange is the New Black. If does anyone watch that show? Okay, so here's a picture of, I like it because there's a whole bunch of people in the picture. So if I click on that, it should grab the picture, and then boom! Wasn't that cool? Like, that was pretty impressive, right? Because if you look at how many different angles their heads are at, it's pretty. Here, let's just see that again. Refresh. Bam. And then notice how there's different amounts of time for them to go, but she timed the speed so all of the sunglasses land at the exact same time on the face, right? Kind of cool. And so you can see it actually did a good job. It actually found all of the faces except for this is a really weird head angle, so I can understand not, oops, sorry, because I zoomed in, it's all mad. All right. So this is a really strange head angle, so I can actually understand that it wouldn't recognize that as a face. And then we have one where she's turned almost completely to the, or actually completely to the side, and her hair is covering, and it didn't recognize that one either. But everything else on this thing, all these crazy angles and such, were recognized, even this one, as faces. All right? So that's pretty good, pretty impressive, I think. So, and she was using the facial detection API, and then she was using the information from those 27 facial landmarks to figure out where the eyes were, and then create that code. So really, really fun. Again, you can go to it. The website is aifunclub.azurewebsites.net, and she also has a link to download the source code. She put the source on GitHub too, so you can download it and see for yourself how it works. So really, really good stuff. Okay, so that is face. Oh, shoot. There's one other thing with face, which I usually, so we actually don't have it at the booth here because the team has a Visual Studio thing set up. But let me just show you this real quick. So this is a demo that we've used at Build and a couple other things. We usually leave it up on the big screens. So let me just show you some of these demos. So there's one that's like a real-time face identification where it will recognize different faces. Do I have any lovely volunteers who want to come and stand next to me here? You'll be on a video for all time. With an age. It's not scary. Come on, get up here then. Yeah. All right. So this is actually recognizing me because I actually trained it. I should have probably removed me before I did this demo. But if I smile, so what it's recognizing is it's actually recognizing me, and then age, and then likelihood, and then things. So get in frame.
For the record, I'm only 3.5 years old.
Oh, how accurate is that?
Close.
Pretty close?
Same age as you.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Nice. You saw. I also. Hey, come back for one more second. Let me just show. So what you can see that it's actually giving. What this one actually gives you is it actually is taking frames and sending them up. So it processes once per second. So sometimes there's a teeny lag. But you can see. Yeah. See. I'm changing the image. So right here we have an estimated age. The angle really makes a difference. I see. You smile, and then the wrinkles and such, they come out. Oh, nice. I like this. So okay. So you can see male it's getting, and then neutral expression. You see there's a little thing right here, happy, all those kind of things. So all of those emotions are coming through right there. So cool stuff, right? So maybe I can thank you so much. Thank you for our lovely volunteer. You can see a lot of cool things. Oh, and the demographic information. So this is even cooler, too. You can actually see, like, if there's a kiosk or you're displaying your stuff at a trade show or something like NDC London even. This is collecting demographic information. So you can see it recognized that there's been one unique woman and one unique man that have been verified in the last hour. And then it gives you the approximate ages, too. So a woman, obviously in her 20s. Not at all, but I'll take it. And then a man in his 30s. So that's pretty cool. And it did recognize it's been analyzing faces every so often, and you can see it's analyzed 36 different faces at this point, but it recognizes that there's only been 2 unique people. So like I can leave, I can walk out of frame, and then come back later, and it still recognizes me as the same person. So that's cool. And then also does the overall sentiment analysis of the crowd. So you can see there's been a lot of happiness here. I think this was when he was making silly, sad faces. So there's the negative emotions there. But this gives the overall crowd emotion. So it sums whoever's in the frame. So that's kind of neat, because if we're all happy or we're all sad, you can get that picked up on there. So that's neat. So as you're doing like demos and stuff, you can see, were people surprised? Were people happy, etc.? So really cool stuff there. One other demo I want to show you real quick, just because this one is, they're all really, really awesome and fun and cool. Okay, maybe I'll show you two. I'm totally gonna run out of time, you guys. You guys don't mind skipping lunch while I just keep doing demos, right? So this one, 3, 2, 1. This one is basically Snapchat. It superimposes stuff. This one was created for the holidays, for a holiday kiosk, I think, in our store. And so it superimposes either Santa Claus or a reindeer or an elf on your face. And it's taking way longer than it usually does. Oh, I got Santa! I look great with a beard and mustache. No, I'm not going to take that with me. Okay, so that's another example. And then I do want to show you the emotion one as well, because this is kind of cool. So what this one does is it recognizes various emotions. So I'm trying not to smile while I talk to you, but I'll smile and get it started. And then once it reaches a certain threshold on an emotion, like I think this is anger, I think this is whatever, it will put it in one of the 8 boxes. So the game is to try to get all 8 emotions to register. Okay, so smile to start. All right, happy. Those are really close. You can see I'm ready for my Academy Award. I'm afraid. Okay. There we go. Okay, thank you. So really, this is amazing. So anyway, this is a really, really fun booth. It's a great demo. So maybe I can try to talk the local Microsoft team to sticking this on the Visual Studio session for a little bit. But the code is available on GitHub. So all of this stuff, all of this code is on GitHub, and you can download it from the Windows Store too, I believe. So really, really fun to kind of see the power of the cognitive services in action. So that's called the Intelligent Kiosk. All right. So there's that. That's the Intelligent Kiosk. And there's a whole bunch. I didn't even show you half of it. Like, there's so much cool stuff in there. So a bunch of really, really neat demos. All right, speech. Let's talk about speech. All right, so speech can do, obviously, we can do speech to text, text to speech, the basics. We can also do speaker recognition. That's pretty cool. And then we also have something called CRIS, the Custom Recognition Intelligence Service, which basically is like Lewis, only for speech. And I'll teach you what Lewis is in a second. But let me just go through and do a couple of demos of this just really quick. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one because I think it's fairly self-explanatory. So we're going to have some sound coming in a second, just FYI to the audio folks in the back. So what I just did was I went to Cognitive Services website again, Microsoft.com, whack cognitive, and then I clicked on here and then click on speech. So the Bing speech one, and that should take me to this page. And then what I'm going to do first is, I'm going to do this in Edge. Uh-oh. Let's see what I have up in my thing. All right, Microsoft speech, good. All right, so I'm going to do this one, and I am going to, the microphone's not going to work because I didn't set up my, configure my thing, but I think the speaking, or you can see text to speech anyway. So let me say, how may I serve you, Khaleesi? Okay, so I'm going to have the machine speak to me, and let's see if this works.
How may I serve you, Khaleesi?
Okay, so text to speech, and then the other way works too, but my microphone isn't hooked up, so I can't show you live. Another thing I'd like to show you is the speaker recognition. So this is kind of a fun demo. They trained a model based on various speeches done by the last 5 United States presidents. So a very opportune demo for today. Leaving it there. Okay, so if we go to the speaker recognition demo, here is the our last 5 presidents, and so what they built a model by training it on various presidents speaking, and then if I play one of the audio clips, what it's going to do is it's going to be listening, and then it will tell you which president it thinks it is. So let me play the first clip.
We gather because we have chosen hope over fear.
All right, and I recognized correctly, that was Barack Obama.
Conflict and discord.
And then the next one is
Americans are called to enact this promise in our lives.
George W. Bush.
And in our laws.
And it can actually differentiate between
both
George Bushes, which is kind of impressive because they do sound kind of similar. And here's Clinton, who also
Today, a generation raised in the shadows of the Cold War assumes new responsibilities.
And then the other George Bush.
And my first act as president is a prayer.
And so it's
I ask you to bow your heads.
So
Heavenly Father.
So kind of cool. Like, it's kind of neat that it can recognize between all of those. Yes, sir.
Does this recognize only English, or can you use it for other languages?
Good question. Really good question. So the question was, can you recognize it for other languages? So what I would guess, based on this demo, I totally knew this. I didn't just open the tab to see what it would work on. But here's a couple of things. I know we're adding support for more and more languages. Is there a specific language that you're interested in?
Well, I guess it would be Norwegian.
Norwegian, okay. Yeah, Norwegian, yeah, you guys. Seriously, I actually just had this conversation because I came back from NDC Oslo and then had a bunch of feedback of, okay, we really, Norwegian. And then, yeah, so they know. I'm telling, yes, I'm working on it for you guys, really. And then, but we're working on expanding language support. The other thing that is really confusing is that although the cognitive services are kind of grouped together, they're all kind of their own teams. So the language support is different for each service. Like each service has different language support. So you might be able to do one thing with one, but not the other. So you do kind of have to look and see what languages are supported specifically before going. And then we do have a translator API, so for last-ditch workarounds type things as well. Okay. So moving back here, we saw a little bit of that good stuff. Now let's go on to language. Let me go a little faster since I've been having too much fun here. All right, so language can do a bunch of stuff. So there's a spell check API. You guys get what that would do. There's a web language model API. So this almost does like Ajax-y predict the next word that's going to be in your sentence type functionality, like just based on all of this data from the web. If you're saying something about, I want to try on high, it would say heels or something like that. So just being able to predict based on word frequencies, that sort of thing. There's a linguistics analysis API. So that's good for like figuring out what parts of speech things are and how the linguistic structure of a sentence fits together. There's the language understanding intelligence service, which I'm going to show you next. That's LUIS. So when I talk about LUIS, that's our language understanding intelligence service. And what that does is essentially translates a natural language expression, so some utterance, to an intent. So one of several intents. So I'll show you that in one sec. And then the text analytics API does like 4 different things. And then 3 of them are the sentiment, key phrases, and language detection on a block of text. And then the 4th thing is you use it with a big chunk of text and get trending topics on that text. All right. So let me show you some demos. Oh, for the text analytics, here are the 4 things. Again, sentiment analysis. So that's a value between 0 and 1, where 1 is very positive sentiment and 0 is very negative sentiment. Key phrase extraction will pull out, here are the main topics. So that's really good for like your support logs. Like throw your support logs at it and have it pull out, okay, people are really talking about Xbox and they're talking about this crash, this Azure thing, or the word crash is coming out a lot, or these kind of things. So these that can be really, really useful for just making sense of a lot of really big log files. Topic detection, so it does the same thing really as kind of key phrase extraction, where again it's grabbing trending topics, but it's using a different technique under the covers. It's using a clustering technique to really find trends among a big collection of data, whereas the key phrase extraction you can do on just small chunks of data too. And then language detection, it can do that in 120 supported languages. And because I knew that gentleman would ask this question, I also included the supported languages on here. Although actually this data is a little bit out of date. We have added a couple more, I think, since I did this slide. So I guess I don't have it completely up to date. I think there's maybe 7 now in sentiment analysis, but I could be getting, don't quote me on that because I could be getting it mixed up with Lewis. There's so many languages with each cognitive service having its own one. Okay, and then language detection is the 120 different languages. All right, so let me show you an example of both of these things. I want to show you the text analytics, and I want to show you Lewis too. So the text analytics we'll do first, and then, so I think I have it open here somewhere. Yeah, so here's a text analytics demo, which is just text-analytics-demo.azurewebsites.net. So I can try something like, this conference is wonderful. The staff is very helpful and the food is fabulous. The content's nice too, but whatevs. Okay. And so if it analyzes this, this is a little slow. It usually performs a little bit faster, so I apologize for the speed lag right here. But you can see what we get back is here's the language detection. So it saw that this was English with 100% confidence. The key phrase extraction was able to successfully parse out that I am talking about the conference, I'm talking about the staff, and I'm talking about the food. Those are the main things I cared about, which was correct. And then the sentiment, it was actually, it was a little over the top, but 100% accuracy in the sentiment. And what's interesting, though, is the value, it actually uses context as well. So if I just do this, for example, let me just do the conference is wonderful. So that value is 98. And let me just stick in, let me see if this actually works. But I think it should work. I haven't tested with this specific text, but this does work in general. If I add in a smiley face, it actually changed it to 97, from 98 to 97. So that does affect the confidence level, which is interesting. So. The question was, what if you remove the smiley and the exclamation mark and it made it 97%? So it is using things like those emoticons for context, which is good because sarcasm is hard. And I'm not claiming that this works for sarcasm because, again, remember, like even I as a human, when a text message is sent to me, nice job, Jen, I don't know half the time. Did you really mean that, or were you being sarcastic? I don't know. When it's just text and you don't have that context, it is really, really a hard challenge. So to keep that in mind. So it's not going to be perfect on sarcasm, but it's pretty good. All right, so that's the text analytics. I'm going to skip the unconscious bias demo for now, but check it out at aka.ms/whack-bias. It's something that I wrote at a hackathon. That basically parses your email and performs sentiment analysis on it, so you can put in someone's email address and see how positive versus negative you are over time to a certain person. Okay, then the other thing is Lewis. So what Lewis gives you is you have, you can define certain, so at the end, top line, what it does is it can map natural language expressions to intents. So you summarize a couple different intents. So this is very commonly used with chatbots and in conjunction with the Microsoft bot framework. So think about if you have a bot that you want to be able to do a couple different things. Like, for example, let's say I want it to be able to book a flight or check in for a flight or cancel a flight. All right? It's an airplane bot. I want to do those 3 things. I would create those 3 things as intents. And then I would go and map natural language expressions to each of those. So I'd give it several different ways of saying, book me a flight. So I'd like to fly from Detroit to Paris on this date, or book me a flight from Detroit to Paris, or give me, can you please get me to Paris from Detroit, or something like that. So I'd say it in a couple different ways, and then basically you can train a model to figure out, okay, all of these things map to this intent, and then you give a couple other examples that map to the other intents, and then it is trained and able to recognize, okay, this natural language maps to this intent, all right? So it's really, really cool functionality, but that's only half of it. Then the part that makes it even cooler is that you can actually help your model improve over time based on real things that your user is saying. So everything that gets sent, it's being sent to an endpoint, right? All of these calls are going to an endpoint, and all of them are logged. So then you can see real questions that your users are asking your bot, for example, that maybe you don't have answers to yet, or you realize, oh, I should have handled that. So let me give you a real example of something that I've done. So this is a bot that I created, the Microsoft Career Bot, and I wrote it for the recruiters to use when they're at like job fairs and stuff, to have a bot that people at job fairs could talk to and ask questions. And so here's an example of it, and it was a hackathon, so it's not perfect yet. I actually need to do some more work, so you can probably stump it. But it's at microsoftcareerbot.azurewebsites.net. So a good best practice when you start a bot is to say, hello, and then have the bot actually say, hi, here's some of the stuff I can do. So it's not just like a completely open conversation. You kind of want to guide your user a little bit. So, how are we doing, Internet? It's been running a little slow today. Oh, shoot. I think it automatically connected me to Microsoft's corporate network, which means it may be sending all of this traffic back to Redmond, which is not the most efficient path. Let's try again. Hello. There we go. All right, so my bot replies saying, hello, you can ask me about job locations, diversity in hiring, benefits, preparing for your interview, and more. Okay. Can I work for Microsoft if I live in England? In case anybody is wondering. Let's check. Oh, I should mention, I wrote this for a machine learning recruiter who wanted to hire more machine learning people, so this is a little bit skewed for machine learning stuff. So it does say, yes, machine learning work at Microsoft happens at a global level. Some of the locations performing machine learning work are blah, 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 England, blah, 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 blah. You can search for jobs by location at this great link. Fabulous. Do I need a work visa if I live in how about if I'm from New Zealand? And then it says, all non-U.S. residents require a U.S. work visa, blah, 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 blah. We'll help you. It'll be awesome. And then finally, I could say something like, sorry, the recruiters wrote the answers to all of these, so I used like the recruiting approved language. Help! I'm having an interview. I'm scared. I need to prep. And then the bot very helpfully says, we have listed some interview tips at this link. Good luck. Okay? So you guys get the idea. Lots of a great, wonderful experience. So let me show you under the covers. No, Lewis, please behave. So I'm sorry, since we're having some internet problems, I may or may not be able to show you this, but essentially what I did was created like maybe 10 or so, maybe 15, maybe 20. Come on, do it. You can do it, Internet. Yes! We got it. All right. So here's the other thing that's cool. You can actually export your whole app, too, which is nice. So you can export all of this stuff. All right, so here's what we have here. First of all, I defined a whole bunch of intents. So these are the things that I want my bot to be able to answer. So basically, I made one intent around benefits, one around education and work experience questions, one about compensation, Microsoft Research jobs, interview prep, relocation, roles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I created a whole bunch of things that I wanted my bot to be able to answer. And then currently, the way I coded it is if Lewis returns this intent, like the benefits intent, then I give them just the stock benefit answer, right? So it's just kind of like one answer per intent, but you don't have to code it that way. You can do kind of a waterfall Lewis model where you call something, it's a benefits type question, call a second model to drill in more, or whatever you want to do. But this particular thing, I just have a 1-to-1 intent to response ratio. And then, so that's kind of the cool part. You do this, you just give it a couple of utterances. So I type in something, I can map it to whatever intent I think it goes to and help make it better. But then what's awesome is that they're using machine learning techniques to figure out which are the things that would help make the model even better. So for example, if there's a result where it came back with, 0.48 confidence in one intent and 0.49 confidence in another intent, those two are pretty thing, it'll expose that one and say, hey, help me out, submit, this and help. It'll give you the things that if you fix them, it'll give you the most bang for the buck. So let me go to the suggest, and hopefully, I apologize if anything bad pops up here, because this is what real people were sending to my bot, so sometimes there's bad things. Okay. So in this case, there's some questions. You can actually change it to what intent, but you can see some of the real questions people are asking. How do I get into the Explorer program? How much public transit support do I get? What's living in Seattle like? Do I get free soda, et cetera, et cetera? Yes, you do, but I don't have a response on that yet. So this is really useful because I can see the questions that real people are asking. And then what I can do is either I can, if they're not being mapped properly, because it actually guesses for each of them where it thinks it belongs, and so I can either confirm that by hitting submit and mapping it to the right thing, or I can see, oh, I don't really have an answer for that yet. Let me create a new intent. Or maybe I want to modify, maybe I loop the free soda thing into benefits and map it there and include that as part of the answer. But what's really neat is you find out things that you may not have thought of and then make your bot even better. Because one of the examples I got is I saw a couple times people were asking about drug testing, like our drug testing policy. And I realized, I apologize because this is a little bit controversial, but the state of Washington, where Microsoft's headquarters is based, just legalized marijuana in the last year or so. And so because of that, I was like, oh my goodness, that's actually a valid question. There are people that might want to know that, and since it's legal in that state now, even though that's something that an angel like me had never thought of, that's a valid question that I might want to, do to my users or expose to my users. So it can help make your bot even better in such a powerful way. So I just love Lewis. It's fabulous. So you should all use it. Okay, so let's go back here. Since we're almost out of time. No, not you. You. All right, one last demo, I think. All right, so the knowledge API, I'm going to move through this one super fast. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. The biggest thing I would call out is the recommendations API. People just seem to really, really like that. You upload your products catalog, and then you upload your transaction log, and it basically puts those together to do things like people who like X also like Y, and it also gives you frequently bought together. So when people buy diapers, they tend to also want formula, those types of things. So a lot of those recommendations, and again, you saw the case study at the beginning that it was improving their sales by 15%. Okay, the search API. So this is being able to programmatically access the power of Bing through APIs. So, and then you can kind of focus it. So there's one that's like web search, there's an auto-suggest one, there's an image search, a video search, a news search. So you can actually kind of tell what part of Bing you want to use. One really cool example of this is Project Murphy. Has anyone seen the Project Murphy bot? Okay, it's pretty cool. I'll just show you real quick then. All right, so I have it up in Skype right now. And again, like any good bot, I'm going to start by saying hello, and it will say, hi, I'm Project Murphy, and there's this cute little thing right here. And so I'm sorry, we're in a long room, so this is kind of hard to see, but let me say, so what Project Murphy does is it answers what-if questions. So if I say something like, what if Satya Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft, was being chased by an elephant, and hit that, what it actually does is makes two Bing image search. So first of all, it does some language stuff to parse out the sentence. Then it makes a Bing image search for Satya Nadella, another Bing image search for being chased by an elephant, and then it uses the face API to actually parse out Satya Nadella's face and then stick it on the guy who's being chased by an elephant and put it all together. So this one, oh, Satya, that's not a good picture of you, dude. Okay. So here is, I apologize. I hope I don't lose my job for this. If you click on it, you can get a better thing. So there's Satya's face superimposed, and it actually does angle. So if it got like a straight-on picture of Satya, but in the picture it's like a sideways thing, it does a little logic to actually kind of wrap the face around, so you get kind of some weird-looking things sometimes when it's like wrapping. But there is What if Satya Nadella was being chased by an elephant? So you guys can kill a whole afternoon. And then it's like playing with this because it is so much fun. The other thing that's cool is that you can actually implement machine learning here. So there's actually some feedback you can give. So if you like it, you can hit the smiley face, or if, the face wasn't that good, you can actually, so it gives you feedback where you can actually provide feedback on that. But let's just do one more because this is just too much fun. What if I were a Disney princess? Because every girl wants to be a Disney princess, right? Maybe. And so here's the thing. If you ask a what if I question, it doesn't know who you are. So it asks you to upload a photo, and it only keeps the photo for 10 minutes, and then it throws it out. So I'm going to actually use the attach thing and attach a picture. And then here is my headshot, and stick that in there. And so now it is uploading that. It will probably give me a timeout error since the internet is a little slow right now. So it might give me a timeout, but it should come back. So give it a second. It usually after a certain amount of time it says, this question is taking longer than I thought it was. I'm still learning. I might have to get back to you later. But then for a second after that, it said attachment received. Here's an idea. And so if we take a look at this, we can see, there is the ugliest Aurora there ever was. Oh, nice. There's me as a Disney princess. Oh, it's not quite how I imagined. Okay, so go check that out. If you go to projectmurphy.net, you can download it or get it hooked up to your Skype or whatever, and you will waste a whole afternoon. And I'm sorry in advance because it's that much fun. All right, the last thing I want to tell you is just one case study or one really amazing thing which combines several of these cognitive services together. So let me just run that real quick, and then we will be done. And you can walk out early if you really need your lunch, and I won't be offended. But I think this is a really neat example of using several of the cognitive services together to do something pretty amazing.
I'm Saqib Sheikh. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind, and that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives. And one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see two faces, 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised, 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do, but artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate, and I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants. building on top of what went before. And in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
Okay. Have you guys seen that video before? Okay, I think I cried the first 17 times I saw it. Like, it's just a really, really moving example of the things that we can do. And do any of you guys know Saqib? He's based here in the UK. So he actually works in Microsoft's office here in the UK. It's just a really, really amazing sense of what we could do and what these services could truly enable. So if you couldn't catch it, whenever he swipes on the glasses, that takes a picture and sends that to the cloud and processes from the thing. So he can then see, okay, here's exactly, it'll use the image recognition API then to describe what it sees. So you have that. And then the second scenario was the emotion detection. So again, in a meeting, are people liking this? Are people understanding me? Being able to get that emotional feedback. And then third, that OCR example. So it was actually using a really neat piece of edge detection logic to find the borders of that of the menu against the dark table, and that helped him align the phone properly so he could get all of it in frame and be able to take a picture of the whole thing, and then just use OCR, which we have an OCR API too, I should have mentioned as one of the ones as well, and then it could read it to him. So really, really amazing, powerful stuff, and it's scenarios like that where you're using technology for good that really, really, I think are the most beautiful ones. All right, so here are all the resources, the documentation, SDKs, all of that good stuff. Just go to microsoft.com/cognitive, and you can try this all out yourself, play with it all. Really, really amazing, really, really fun stuff. Thank you.